Today's webinar has been organized by the Faculty of Science and especially the Department of Biotechnology and Food Technology, the Department of Chemistry, and the Department of Environmental Sciences. However, we also have a Department of Biomedical Sciences within the TUT family. And right now, I would like to introduce Dr. Karin Boshoff, who will be talking to us, giving us just basic information, really, on what actually is a vaccine, because I think there's a little bit of confusion out there. Maybe some of us don't know that there's a difference between a vaccine and an antibiotic. I don't know. But anyway, I believe that, after Dr. Boshoff's talk, we'll all be clear on what is a vaccine, and maybe, our decision making will be a little bit already improved. And after that, I will introduce our speakers as they come. However, our program will change a little bit, but we'll see as we go on. So, Dr. Boshoff, are you ready? You can start with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody, and again I would also like to thank the Faculty of Science, specifically Dr. Tahoge, for inviting me to be part of this webinar today. And I hope I will be able to share some light of maybe on some of the topics and some of the issues regarding viruses and vaccines. So my talk, I'm going to just put up my PowerPoint. So my talk will be mostly, as been said before, based on, just get to where I need to be. There we go. Okay, so I hope everybody can see. If you can't see, please just send me a message. So my talk today will be on viruses and vaccines. I think these days with Corona, not these days, the past 2 years, viruses has been a highly discussed topic amongst many people. And I think that is why it's also today a very important topic to discuss within the midst of middle of Corona, as well as the vaccinations that's been rolled out. So I think to understand vaccines, we really need to understand what is a virus. And I think that's where we need to start today to discuss exactly what is a virus. And for if you do not know that a virus are the most common biological entity on Earth. So viruses are submicroscopic, and I will impact all of these words for the ones that do not know really a lot about biology. It's a submicroscopic, obligated intracellular parasite. Submicroscopic means it's very, very tiny. We cannot even see it with a normal microscope. So submicroscopic, it's below the range of a normal light microscope for us to be able to see. Obligated intracellular means it needs to make use of a host cell to be able to reproduce. It cannot reproduce on itself. And parasite, we all know what is a parasite. It's something that gains from the environment or from the host that they use. So a virus particle cannot grow on themselves, and they cannot undergo division by themselves. The viruses rely on organisms to survive, and these organisms can either be human cells, animal cells, even bacteria. So the virus needs to invade a host to be able to replicate and to be able to maintain itself. Now, we need to also understand what a virus consists of. And this is very important when we look at vaccination development as well. So a virus consists out of really two components. Inside is, I'm going to quickly add my pointer. Okay, so inside a virus is the nucleic acid material. These nucleic acid materials, the genetic instruction. So this is really your recipe on how to cook or how to bake. For a virus, this is the recipe of a virus, how they need to look at the end. Outside the virus is a capsid, and this capsid are made of proteins. And this capsid, really, the function of this capsid is to protect the genetic material, to protect the method of how a virus needs to look like. Some viruses also have spikes, not all virus families. And these spikes, specific for corona, is very important during the replication process, as these spikes will then bind to the host cell to be able to replicate. So if we look at how a virus works, so we have a normal cell, a human cell. This is a bacterial cell. And we have a virus. Now, the virus uses those spikes of the virus to attach to the cell wall. The nucleic acid or the blueprint are then injected into the cell wall. And this is the machinery. And this then really hijacks the cell machinery. So all the organelles, all the energy that is needed to be able to replicate, this virus hijacks the cell and it starts to form components. There you can see again, it's forming again the outer capsid with new nucleic acid. And all of these particles are then packed again and assembled, as we call it, into new virus particles. And these new virus particles are then released when the cells break open to go into the environment. Viruses cannot replicate in the environment. So they cannot replicate outside a living host cell. Viruses can spread in the environment. So when you sneeze and some of the virus particles are exhaled, it can spread to your neighbor, and your neighbor can inhale the virus particles again, and the viruses then need to go into the cells to start to replicate. So these viruses lie around in the environment waiting for a host cell to come along. And this is part of vaccination as well, that we will discuss a bit later on. Viruses are very specific in which cells they replicate. They cannot replicate in any cell, as these attachment mechanisms of the virus to the host cell are highly specific, and only specific viruses can attach to specific cells. But once inside the host cell, this virus will start to replicate. And from one virus particle that entered, 1 million virus particles can be reproduced within a host cell that will be then released. Now, the big question always when you go to your doctor and the doctor says this is a bacterial infection or this is a viral infection, and for viruses I cannot prescribe antibiotics. So why not? So we need to define what is an antibiotic and what is a vaccine. So an antibiotic is a medicine that inhibits the growth or destroy a microorganism. Antibiotics are chemicals that kill the bacteria, and we use it for bacterial infections. And this is mainly purely, again, based on the difference between the structure of a bacteria and a virus. The virus do not have all the structures that this antibiotics can then attack to prevent reproduction. The viruses are inside the host cell. So if we have an antibiotic made against the cell to be able to kill the virus, it will have a toxic effect on our own cells, as we do not attack our own cells to kill the virus that is inside. So the antibiotic kills a bacteria, or it stops the bacteria from reproducing. But due to the fact that the virus is inside the host cell, antibiotics work not and cannot target the the growth machinery of bacteria or viruses, as these viruses do not have growth machinery. So antibiotics is for treatment against a bacterial infection. Now, what is a vaccine? So a vaccine is a substance used to stimulate the immune response. So a vaccine we use as a prevention and not as a treatment, as in the case of antibiotics. So a vaccine can be made against bacteria or viruses, but it stimulates the host cell own machinery to be able to work against an infection. I think we also need to understand virus families. So why is virus family so important? Because we cannot have one vaccine against all the different types of viruses. Why do we need to have a vaccine made against corona? Why cannot we use already established vaccines against a specific family? So in 2020, to give you an idea, there were already 189 virus families. And within the
I'm sorry to rush you, Dr. Boshoff. I think you only left with about 4 minutes, so just wanted to let you know.
Let me just quickly then continue to vaccines. Thing doesn't want to move on. Vaccines. Why is vaccine so important? I think we mainly focus on 3 types of vaccines: inactivated vaccines, live attenuated vaccines, and mRNA that we use these days. I'm just going to discuss these 2. Live attenuated vaccine is where they use the virus particle itself as it is, as you've seen in the picture, but they weaken the virus particle so that it cannot cause a disease. But your immune response will still have a response against this virus particle because it's a complete virus particle. This virus will infect the host cell, it will replicate as normal, and it will trigger an immune response, but it will not cause a serious disease. With mRNA vaccines that we use these days, the genetic material, so the blueprint, are only made against one of these receptors. So in your immune response, only this receptor will be recognized and antibodies against the receptor will be made. So if you are exposed a second time, your antibodies will already be triggered and it will already be activated to be able to make an immune response. So the effect for a vaccine is to ensure when you get exposed on a second time to the same virus that your immune response will be much quicker. The first time response against a virus, in this case, antibodies are taken between 7 to 10 days to be made. But because you were with vaccination already exposed to this foreign particle, it will be much quicker. Immediate reaction for these antibodies will be available, and you will still be infected, but the infection will not be that severe. And I think my last slide is really trying to explain what it's all about. So although we wear bulletproof vests when we go to war, we are not expected not to be shot. So we will probably have to face bullets, but this will prevent us from being killed. So the vaccination is exactly the same. It will trigger your immune response, and your immune response will be quickly activated. So although you will still get infected, you will still be exposed to the virus. A vaccine is not going to prevent you from not being exposed or not being infected by a virus. it will prevent you from really getting sick or really getting ill, as the immune response will quickly act, and the immune response will quickly make new antibodies to be able to have a quicker immune response and do not have a severe illness. From the first slide where I said one particle can make a million, if the antibodies are quicker to neutralize the virus particle, it will not be able to produce millions and millions. And I think that is the most important why we need to vaccinate. Sorry, Dr. Taoge, I went a bit over my time.
Yeah, you trust the lecturer to give a short presentation.
Never possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boshoff.